We are continuing our series called Onward, where we're looking at this path that Jesus has laid out for us. And what Jesus does is early in his ministry, he has these huge crowds following him, and this kind of seems to be, it's called the Sermon on the Mount. It kind of seems to be his main theme, his main teaching that he does. And we're examining this path that he lays out and go, are we on it? Are we following it in our own lives? Today, what he's going to talk about is this. He's going to talk to us about how do we determine what is authentic and what is counterfeit when it comes to our spiritual lives. What is authentic spirituality and what is counterfeit spirituality? I remember back in college, and I think it's probably like my sophomore or junior year, we went to New York City, and I don't remember who or why I was at New York City, but maybe I just got there. I don't know. Anyways, I got to New York City, and I had a roommate from Long Island, so it might have been when I went with him and stayed at his house. But we were downtown. I'm on the main streets, and we had like 3 or 4 other people with us, and 2 of them were like girls from the college that I wasn't dating by any time at that point. Autumn was just a friend. I wasn't cheating on Autumn, just so you all know. It wasn't like I was double dating girls. But anyways, we're down there, and I remember her name was Julie Crankshift. What a last name, Crankshift. But Julie was with us. She had never been to the big city, and we're walking downtown New York. Growing up in Detroit, you're used to this stuff, and you're used to big cities. She's not. We're down there, and some guy comes up as we're walking down the street, and he comes up, and he's the classic guy that has, like, the briefcase, and he opens it up, and he's got Rolexes, okay? And I remember he's like, you guys want a Rolex? I'll sell it to you for, it was like $50 or something. He's like, I'll sell it to you for $50. I got all these Rolexes and stuff like that. And I remember her looking at me going, should I get one? It's only $50. I was like, Julie, they're not real. And he's like, yeah, they're real. I'm like, then you wouldn't be selling them for $50. You go sell them on the black market somewhere and get a lot more than $50. She's like, should I get one? They could be real. I'm like, Julie, they're not real. If you want to throw $50 on a fake, $50 for a fake Rolex, go for it. And she's like, okay, I think I'll pass. He wasn't obviously happy with me at that point. And then as we started to walk off, he saw him shut it up, and he went down some alley because obviously he saw someone coming. But anyways, you're able to see some things that are authentic, some things that are counterfeit. I want to test your skills a little bit as well before we get started to see how good you are on just some typical things you see in life. So I've got 4 pictures. We'll see if you can tell what's fake and what's authentic. So here's the first one. Okay, pair of Nike sandals. How many of you believe those to be authentic Nike? We're starting easy here. We're starting easy, okay? How many of you think that one's a counterfeit? Okay, good. It's counterfeit because it's not spelled N-K-I-E. It's N-I-K-E, all right? So we started easy. So that's the first one. Your second test here is an iPhone. Now, you got 2 iPhones. One's a fake, one's real. How many of you think the one on the left is the real iPhone? Raise your hand. Really? How many of you think the one on the right? Okay, it is the one on the right. It's the real, authentic one. That's pretty impressive. So if you know iPhones, I wasn't really sure because I've never had an Apple product. But if you have Apple products, obviously that's obvious to you, I'm assuming, if you're an Apple product person. Okay, so you have that one. Next one, this gets a little harder. $20 bill. You have 2. One's authentic, one's actually a counterfeit. All right, so take a second, look that over. Look at the things you typically look for and see if you can figure it out here in a second. And I'll give you 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. How many of you believe the top one is the real one? Okay, hands down. How many of you believe the bottom one's the real one? Okay, the real one is the top one. All right? Now, it's a little bit harder when you can't touch and feel it at all. The reasons that you can tell a few of it is the coloring on the 20 here, and then like the little eagle is a little too gold. And you can tell the other ones are a little more faded, which is more actual. And sometimes, which you can't see on here great, but you all know about like that little piece of paper that's embedded in the 20s, right? If you hold it up, you can see that strip. Everybody aware of that? There's a strip in your 20. If you hold up the light, you can see like the strip that says $20 bill all through it. You can vaguely see it on that one on the top. The other thing you know, so if you go to a cash register, what do you see them do a lot of times? Okay, they pull out the marker and they can mark on it, and it will show up the orange line on it if it's real. If it's counterfeit, it won't, because it won't have the chemical reaction. Last one, and this one even gets tougher. Diamonds. One's authentic, one is counterfeit. Now, I know it's not a crystal clear picture, but if you're as good as I am, that shouldn't bother you at all. If it makes you feel better, in my notes I wrote down which is the real one, just because I wanted to make sure I look smart when I'm up here. All right, so you have a authentic and a fake, or a fake and an authentic. Take a second. You got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, if you think the one on the left is the real one, raise your hand. If you think the one on the right is the real one, raise your hand. Okay, the real one is actually this one on the left. So that is the real diamond. What happens is this. Jesus understands that he is not going to be here always with these people. He's figured this out. He knows he's not going to be around long. And what he does is he wants his followers to be able to determine what is spiritually authentic and what is spiritually counterfeit. So what he's going to do today is towards the end of his teaching here as we wrap up this week and next week are the last 2 sets of the series. Today he's going to cover 3 different areas of our spiritual lives that he's going to instruct us to go, you need to make sure these areas are authentic. Because unlike clothing, unlike phones, money, or jewelry, being able to determine what is spiritually authentic is a matter of eternal life or eternal death. These are very important matters. So the first thing he wants you to do is this. Jesus wants you to be able to determine if your path that you are on is authentic. Meaning, the things that he's been teaching the last 8 weeks or whatever, he wants to make sure the stuff he's been laying out, are you actually living that out in your life? Are you on that path that he has set for you to walk? And here's what he says, chapter 7, verses 13 through 14. He says this, you can enter the kingdom only through the narrow gate. The highway to hell is broad, and its gate is wide for the many who choose that way. But the gateway to life is very narrow, and the road is difficult, and only a few ever find it. So Jesus comes out and he says there are 2 paths you can follow in life. There's one that's very broad, it's got a huge gate, it's easy to get on, and he says this, a lot of people will take that path, and it leads to where? Destruction. And he says, but then there's another path, and this other path is more narrow, it's got a narrow gate, and he says, but it leads to life. It leads to heaven, it leads to salvation, but only a few actually find it. Now let me tell you in more modern terms kind of how I would describe this. The wide path. It's very easy to walk on. It's very easy to follow because you have no real place that you're trying to get to. You're just hopping in your car and you're just driving around aimlessly. So although it's easy because you're not going anywhere because you have no place that you're trying to go, you're just driving, so you can't make any errors, you can't make any mistakes, you can't have any failures, you're just driving. Even though it's easy, it doesn't lead to anywhere of any value. You never show up anywhere that you wanted to show up because you had nowhere that you were actually going in the first place. On the other side of things is if you're on the narrow path, it is more difficult. And the reason it's more difficult, you have a desired destination that you're trying to get to. And if you have a desired destination you're trying to get to, there's going to be directions. There's going to be a path you have to follow to end up at point A, because if you're at point B, C, or D, you didn't get to where you wanted to get to. So it is a tougher road to follow. It is a narrower path because this is not a free-for-all. There's actually a defined process and a place you are trying to get to. For instance, if Jesus said, do you want to arrive in heaven? So let's say I'm Jesus up here and he says, do you want me to tell you how to get to heaven? And we say yes. And he says this, then drive to 6159 Fawn Lane, Ellenwood, Georgia, 30294. Drive to that location, you will find heaven. A person on the wide road hears that and goes this, I'm just going to hop in my car and start driving around aimlessly. And maybe someday I'll bump into that address. In all reality, though, there is zero chance you ever make it to that address if you're on the wide road, because you just go, I'm just going to try to figure it out on my own with some basic knowledge I have. You will never find that address. You will never arrive at that destination. People on the narrow path, though, this is what you would do, which is what most of you would do in life, is if I gave you that address, what's the first thing you do? Google it. You go to Google Maps, type it in, and hit the little magnifying glass, and it will say, here's 4 different routes, which one you want to take, and you tap it, and then it starts to talk to you, and your GPS kicks in, and it tells you where to go. All right? Now, here's the deal. That's a little bit more difficult than just hopping in your car and driving around, because what your GPS is going to tell you is it's going to tell you you need to go out here and turn right. And you're going to turn right. And it's going to say in that 21st Street, you need to turn left, and you're going to turn left. And it's going to say you get to 169, you go up this ramp, and you go south, and you'll go south. And there will be times in your life where you miss an exit, and it will go, you need to U-turn, rerouting. And it will tell you how to get back on your destination, your path that you need to go. And what you will have is you will have this voice from time to time telling you you're off track. Because I'm trying to get you to where you said you want to go. You need to follow this path. That's more difficult because the people on the wide road are going, no one tells me anything. I just do what I want to do. I don't have to hear a voice say, do a U-turn, do a U-turn. Okay, I followed the GPS a lot this week. So U-turn, and you're like, oh, okay. It gets a little annoying at times, but without it, I'm not getting to where I want to go. Okay, people on the narrow path, you have the voice of God. You have the scriptures that you can look at that are your GPS that's telling you, yeah, this is how you need to live your life. And there are times that God will confront you and use other people to confront you to go, you're off course. Get back on course because this is where you said you wanted to go. It is a narrower path. It is harder, but at the same time, it has eternal rewards and it will get you to where you want to go. You see, if you're going through life on a daily basis and you are not having to think about what you do on a regular basis and you just live life day to day and you're not thinking stuff through about the decisions you're making and all, I can tell you you're pretty much on the wide road. If you get up each morning and just go, I just take care of what has to be taken care of, I'm not putting much thought into it, I'm not thinking forward at all, I'm not thinking how this applies to anything else, I just live and deal with stuff as it comes up day to day, you're living on the wide road in most likelihood. But if you find yourself on a regular basis engaging God because you go, I need God's input. If you find yourself on a regular basis studying the Word of God because you're going, I need to find answers to things that I have questions to. If you find yourself on a regular basis engaging His people to determine your steps regularly and getting advice from people that you consider good Christian brothers and sisters that can give you advice and support you, if you find yourself constantly and regularly in that on a day-to-day basis, you can be pretty much assured, I would say, you're on the narrow path because you are trying to make the decisions to be on the path that God would have you to be on. And that's what Jesus is saying here is you need to determine, is your path authentic? Are you following the path that God has laid out for you to get to the destination you desire to get to, which is heaven? There's a lot of people in this world that go, I don't need God, I don't need a church, but I'm going to heaven. And I'm going, dude, if you're not listening to the Creator and you're not listening to the GPS, there's no chance of you ever getting there. It doesn't matter how far you drive. It doesn't matter how long you're in the car. You ain't getting there because you don't know where you're going. It's through the Creator that He shows you this is where you need to go. And Jesus is going in your walk with Christ. Make sure your walk is authentic. Make sure the path you are following is authentic. The next thing that He wants us to be able to determine if it's authentic or counterfeit is this, the leader or the leaders that you follow. The people that you allow in your life that you trust enough to go, I trust them to lead me and I listen to their teaching. Some people, I might just be one person. Some of you, it might be no one. You don't even have anyone like that yet. Some of you, it might be several different people you have in your life that you trust to be a spiritual leader or teacher in your life. And He goes, you need to make sure they're authentic or they're counterfeit so you can make sure you're following the right people. And here's what He says. Verses 15 through 20. He says, beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep but are really vicious wolves. So he starts off, he just says, beware that there are some people out there that try to look like a nice sheep, but really they're a vicious wolf that's all about their hunger and about their needs. You need to beware. And he says this, you can identify them by their fruit. That is, by the way they act. Can you pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree cannot produce bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot produce good fruit. So every tree that does not produce good fruit is chopped down and thrown into the fire. Yes, just as you can identify a tree by its fruits, so you can identify people by their actions. So the same way you can look at an apple tree and know it's an apple tree because what's growing on it? What's growing on an apple tree? Apples. Or you can identify an orange tree because what's growing on it? Apples. No, oranges. All right? He's saying, he's giving a word illustration. The same way you can look at a tree and see what fruit's on and go, well, that's an apple tree, that's an orange tree. Even if you don't know much about it, you can look at the fruit and go, I know an apple, so I can assume that's an apple tree. I know an orange, I can assume that's an orange tree. He's giving an illustration. He's going, your leaders, the people that you allow to teach you, you need to take time and evaluate to see if they are authentic or if they are counterfeit. And here's the thing. Even people you trust, you don't ever stop evaluating if they are authentic or counterfeit. Some people have a habit of going, I've learned to trust this person, and then I check out, and I just follow everything they say, like most of you do with me, because you're like, he's just so good. Yeah, okay. But no, a lot of people have a tendency, I've now trusted this person, so now I don't evaluate anymore. That is not healthy. Even if you've learned to trust someone, you still have to evaluate them and keep an eye on their teachings and what they are saying and their lives. You can't just go, I trusted them before, so even though I noticed some things here that don't look good at all, well, I trusted them before, so it's fine. Okay, that's a recipe for disaster. You are supposed to constantly be evaluating the people you trust to lead you and to teach you. You see, false leaders or fake teachers will point you to living on the wide road. They will not point you to the narrow road, which is living like Jesus Christ. Now, understanding that, the way they do that sometimes is misunderstood. The one we all understand well about false teachers or false teachers is this. We know the people that are a wide road that give you lax, you can just do whatever you want. Okay? We all understand that one is if you have a guy just going, God doesn't care about anything and you can live any way you want to and God doesn't care to change your life and God doesn't desire to impact you at all. He just wants you to say, hey, you're a Christian and that's good. We all know if you heard that, that's too lax and that's probably a false teacher or something like that. They're putting you on the wide road. Why? Because there are no bad things. You just drive wherever you want and they're good with you. There's no conflict. There's nothing. I want you to also know there's other false teachers that can put you on the wide road that sometimes deceive us. And that is the people that are too restrictive and too legalistic. All right? The people that will come to you and go, you know what, that guy is really lax and he's got people on the wide road. I'm going to put you on the real narrow one because I'm going to tell you how to live everything out in your life. I'm going to tell you how you're supposed to dress, how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to do this in this situation, this situation, this situation. And I'm going to become your dictator, and I'm going to tell you every decision you have to make. I can tell you what's right and what's wrong, and I'm going to lay them out for you and give you your list so you can follow them. Now, some of you would go, well, that looks like a narrow path to follow. I would tell you, no, it's not. It's actually a really easy one because you don't have to involve God in that either. All I need is my list, and I can just obey the list. And I can go on automatic pilot mode, and I can just achieve the list and be done with it without ever knowing Jesus Christ. That's a very wide road, too, because it doesn't take any work from you. You just follow someone and let them dictate to you your life. All right? That is the wide road as well. And I think that's one we miss at times, is when we hear wide road versus narrow, we go, well, the narrow road must be the guy that's really restrictive on us. Okay? No. The narrow road is the guy who leads you to live like Jesus Christ and interact with God on a regular basis and allows God to interact with you to teach you how to live your life and is there to help instruct you and give you encouragement. And when you struggle through things, to be there to God to help to walk you through some of that, to get you back to where God wants you. Not to be a guy go, here's a list, live the way I tell you to live in every area of your life. You will also notice in a fake teacher, their personal lives will start to look a lot like the world, like everybody else that's on the wide road. They might get up on stage here and speak the most great things in the world, inspire you every Sunday, but their lives are just like everybody else in the world, and they look no different than the people on the wide road. And he would tell you, you got to be careful of those guys. You need to know who your teachers are, the people you let lead you, whether they are sitting there with you right now and you get spiritual advice from them, or they're up on stage and you're getting spiritual advice from them. You need to know what their lives are like to some degree. That does not mean you need to put a camera on them and watch them everywhere they go and go, I need to see everything about your life. But you need to spend some time actually evaluating their life outside of what they do just up here or when they're giving you advice and go, are they producing apples because they're an apple tree? Or are they producing thorns because they're really a thorn bush, but they get up on stage and look like an apple tree for 5 minutes? You need to take time to evaluate their lives. You see, wolves will eventually show themselves. They'll eventually reveal themselves to the world around them. So you must closely watch those you look to. Make sure their lives are producing healthy fruit that match biblical teaching. Now, one last little clarification there. The people that you trust to lead you are not perfect. They will never be perfect. I am not perfect. Even apple trees at times produce unhealthy apples that are apples you would never want to eat. But a majority of their stuff, when you look at it, go, but they produce a lot of apples. All right? You are not following Jesus Christ by any man on any stage in any church you ever go to. They're not. But do their private lives produce fruit? Same thing with you. Do your lives produce a quantity of fruit that's consistent? You need to evaluate that to make sure the leaders you are following are authentic and they're not counterfeit. The last area that Jesus is going to say you have to determine if it's authentic or counterfeit is this. It's your own personal faith. So last place he's going now, he's talked about your path you're on. He's talked about the leaders that you follow. Now he's going to go, your personal faith, you also have to evaluate and determine, is it authentic? Here's what he says in Matthew 7, 21 through 23. He says, not everyone who calls out to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only those who actually do the will of my Father in heaven will enter. Let me reread those words before we carry on. Listen to this and read it very intently. He says, not everyone who calls out to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only those who do what? The will of my Father in heaven will enter. It says, on judgment day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, we prophesied in your name. We cast out demons in your name. We performed many miracles in your name. But I will reply, I never knew you. Get away from me, you who break God's laws. All right? Jesus was not interested in leading these people to a new religion just to follow. Jesus was interested in pointing these people to a relationship with the creator of the universe. And then he comes out and gives this thing, and gives an illustration of people who were following a religion and going, they were following a religion and they never knew me. You see, really it boils down to this. Do you have feelings or do you have convictions? A guy made a good point of this at CIY this week, a conference I was at. Do you have feelings or do you have convictions in your life? Do you feel religious or do you have convictions that determine every choice that you make in your day-to-day life? You see, religious people have a lot of feelings for God from time to time. Religious people go to a worship service sometimes, and they feel like, man, that one really touched me. I had a good time there. Religious people might hear a speaker that inspires them for a time and go, man, that guy really inspired me. Religious people see an act of mercy, and it might soften their heart for a time being going, man, that was a real act of mercy, and that really inspired me, and that really softened my heart. And it lasts for a moment. But all they are is just a bunch of feelings that they have towards God. And when they stand before God someday, they might say things like this. They might say, Lord, Lord, you know what? I went to church on a regular basis. I went to Sunday school a lot of weeks. I gave money to ministry from time to time. And Jesus is going to look at them and go, away from me. I never knew you. You weren't doing the will of my Father. I don't know who you are. And they're going to be, but I did all these things. He's going, yeah, you did all those things, but you never had a relationship with me. You didn't know who I was. You were just doing these things. And from time to time, you felt me and felt good about me and felt like, man, you really wanted to do something for me, but that's where it stayed. You see, people that have a relationship with God are people with convictions. They have the same feelings as those religious people from time to time, but they also have convictions that lead them to living a life of worship to God. Their convictions lead them to listening to, and not just listening to, but following through on the will of God for their lives. Convictions take feelings and puts them into actions on a daily basis. You see, religious people have feelings, and all they have is feelings, and they just stay there for the moment. True people have a relationship with Christ. They have the feelings, and then it turns into convictions that change how they live the rest of their lives on a daily basis. So Jesus says, evaluate your own faith. Is it authentic? Or is it counterfeit? Is it just a bunch of feelings? Or is it actual convictions that are put into action that change the way you live on a regular basis? You see, Jesus didn't want to lead followers to another religion. And Jesus doesn't want you just to follow a religion. Jesus is deeply concerned that you would find an authentic relationship with the Father. That is what God or Jesus is concerned about here. And he knows the key to that is that you learn how to determine what is authentic and what is counterfeit when it comes to your spiritual lives. Because if you can find the narrow road and get on it, if you can join with a godly church, and if you can be led by convictions rather than just your feelings, God can change your world. You pray with me.